12th meeting of Nelson County Board of Supervisors. If y'all would please rise and join us in silence. Thank you. Mr. Barton, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, first up, we will start with our public comment section. If you would, please come to the podium, state your name and your address. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. And Mr. Reed will be our timekeeper. And first up is Marta King here. Yes, you are first up.
All right.
Sorry, I apologize.
Mr. Farr,
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize for interrupting. May we introduce a new employee?
I'm sorry, you're absolutely right.
Thank you so much.
Linda, if you would please come up. Susan. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, we're crazy today. Good afternoon, and I'm here to tell you that the Information Systems Department is excited to welcome Mr. Glenn Yee to fill the vacant Information Systems Specialist position. Glenn is a graduate of James Madison University and holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Geography with concentration in Applied Geographic Information Science. He's also gained experience in the GIS field working for the city of Harrisonburg. Glenn will be responsible for maintaining and updating the county's GIS as well as supporting the department's overall IT operations. So we are really excited to have Glenn here and hope you'll join me in welcoming him.
Absolutely. Welcome. Thank you, Susan, and welcome, Glenn. We're glad to have you. Thank you. Now we will open up public comments. And
sorry for not sitting back
yeah,
down.
no, I don't blame you. It's fine.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Carr. If you don't mind, we've got 2 handouts that if we can bring them forward to you. I'm Marta Kane. I'm the CEO with Java, and Tish Blackwell is our Director of Philanthropy and Communications and our Nelson liaison. First thing we wanted to do is just thank you all so very much for your support in the fiscal year 24 budget. We really appreciate it, and we're very excited about the new year. I wanted to let you know we have 2 new people who are going to be working and supporting Nelson. LaRonda Gray is already at the community center. As you know, Danny moved to Utah, so we were happy to have him there, but family was better support in Utah. So LaRonda's now going to be at the community center. She's been there for about a month. So please stop by on Monday or Tuesday. I understand John has gone back to being able to support 2 days a week, so we really appreciate that too. And then Dorothy Wilson is the new Aging Service Coordinator, and she's currently at Hillsdale getting trained and oriented and learning how to do the job and, of course, do the IT things that you put all of our data in. But she will soon be located out at the Nelson Center, and then she'll probably be doing some things at Tuckahoe at least once a month. So wanted to tell you about that. I'm going to leave the annual report for Tish, but I just wanted to say the other handout, the impact stories, are kind of the things that get at the individual, the things that our actual clients and members talk about, how they feel, what their situation was, and how the program felt to them. And I just want to remind you that pretty soon is Medicare Part D open enrollment. So we will be having we'll be all set up we have 52 counselors this year, so we should be able to do even more appointments. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tish.
Hi, thank you for having us today. I just want to tell you a little bit about the annual report that you have in front of you that is from our last fiscal year. We were able to provide some insightful outcomes from the benefits of our programs and services from the previous fiscal year, including ways that we were able to increase socialization and connecting for older adults with our community senior centers and our At Home with Java program, allowing seniors to connect virtually who may be homebound. Also, with our direct support services, last year we were really excited to see we had a 98% satisfaction rate of callers who called into our senior helpline seeking help. And there's some statistics in there in terms of folks who were referred to our aging services coordinators, helping to get additional supports that they may need, along with making decisions to help them live even better life. Nutrition, of course, is always a focal point for us, so you'll find some information in there on our home delivered meals program. Satisfaction not only with the taste and selection of meals, but the dependable delivery that seniors are able to have. Advocacy, of course, is another one of our strong areas. Marta mentioned the insurance counseling program, which is always a huge one for us. You'll see in the report that last year, our insurance counseling program was able to save clients $1.6 million in their plans for insurance as well as prescriptions. And of course, our JREC, which is our Java Respite and Enrichment Centers, we've had overwhelming satisfaction rates with not only the environment and safety, but how it addresses the needs for respite for caregivers. And we continue to see those census numbers go up this year as well. And last, but certainly not least, at the end of the report is our overall financial picture. And you can get an idea of how state and local government funding really adds to value and helps us make these programs and services available to the communities we serve.
Thank you.
Thank you both very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have Patty Avalon.
Hi everyone, I'm Patty Avalon. I live at 791 Front Street in Livingston. And I'm here simply because I wanted to put something on record that I'm the acting vice president of the Livingston Village Association. And at the August 8th meeting, it was listed that the Livingston Village Association had a funding request, which we did not. We think there was a clerical error that somebody had put the Village Association name there asking for funding. And we did not ask for it, approve it, nor receive it. So that's basically what I'm here to say. I think it was probably for the Village of Livingston, and someone communicated the association. So just for the record, I thought that was important to state. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Stevens.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Stevens. I live at 364 Finley Gap Drive, Regina. I'm opposed to the Finley Gap Park project for the following reasons. One, the disturbed property is located in a very remote part of Nelson County. Number two, the most important reason is the only access to this property is Finley Gap Drive. Again, Finley Gap Drive. In its current state, Finley Gap Drive can't support any traffic safely. A single lane, dirt and gravel road used primarily for logging operations and hunters. There are a few turnabouts, but if two vehicles meet, someone will have to back up until they reach a wide enough place. It is approximately 3.8 miles long, connecting Norwood Road to Keats Church Road. There are 4 places where creeks cross the road. After any rain, any repair to these places will get washed away. In its current state, rain is Finley Gap Road's worst enemy. There are many areas where both sides of the road are washed out and very deep gullies are formed. If a vehicle drops a wheel into one of these, there might be a good chance that it might not be able to get out. I'm almost afraid to take my full wheel up there and drop a wheel. Cell service in this area is very limited. I have Verizon, and most of the time when I'm up there, I can't get any service. So how can anyone get help if they need it? Till some major improvements can be made to Finley Gap Drive, I can't see anyone willing to tackle this road to go to a new park, hiking trail, when there are many other ones in the county with better and safer access and known views. Understand that VDOT is going to take over the improvements, or be asked to take over the improvements to Finley Gap. It's my understanding that VDOT plans their road work many years in advance, assuming 4 to 5 year budget process. So are we looking to 3 to 5 years or more before this even gets to the planning stage? Then why the hurry up, get this park done? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Matthew Stevens.
Hello, my name is Matthew Stevens. My parents are residents of 364 Finley Gap Drive. I'm opposed to this proposed Stewart hiking area on Finley Gap Drive. I'll begin with the road. Our property has roughly a quarter mile of Finley Gap access. Opposite of that is a creek, which acts as a natural boundary. To widen Finley Gap Drive to accommodate paving and handle buses, is Nelson County going to declare eminent domain of the sections of our property? And by doing that, are they going to do that same thing to multiple other residents along that drive? And setting a precedence like that seems a little bit scary, that you're going to start pulling people's land in rural Virginia in this county, because it has implications across other counties to say that this is now going to be done. We have sanitation concerns as well on that road. Who is going to handle anything that's associated with the ditches, with problems with dumping? There's already dumping on that road as is. I'll move on to safety and security. This project does come to fruition. A cut through, which has been generally used by locals with four-wheel drive, is going to be now opened up to the general population with any car that they want. This road is basically out in the middle of nowhere inside a large hunting area where, if paved, during my teenage years, we would search out areas like this. Remote, pavement, nobody around. It sounds like a perfect place for juveniles to go get in trouble. Jerry West, stated that during our community meeting that was held, that this area would be open up year round, 24/7, with no monitoring, no gate, no locks, as well with no surveillance method to protect this protected area. Speaking on that, the community meeting that was held by Valerie Walker, I wasn't expecting all 5 supervisors to be there, but I did expect the South District to be there. There was no representation by this board at that community meeting. I was kind of dismayed by that. Don't imagine that if this happened in the North or in the Central districts, that all 5 of you guys would have been there. All right, I'm a hunter. I'm an avid hunter. I'm an active member of 2 local clubs that reside back in the same area. Trying to understand why people would want to come back to a 6,000 to 7,000 acre tree farm to hike on 3 miles of postage stamp area. I don't see any need for that. Your plans are also to keep this hunting area open, or this hiking area open during hunting season, which I don't know if you guys want to have, let's say, students walking around studying wildlife as it's proposed, and having gunshots and dogs run all around you during this summer vegetation. I just don't see how that would be a good thing to have a postage stamp size area of 3 hiking miles inside the South District It basically is all pine forest in itself. So the residents, if they do want to go out in pine forests, they walk out their backyard. Thank you for your consideration today.
Thank you. William Piercy.
My name is William Piercy, at 608 Fortune's Cove. Wanted first to address Jesse since he's not here, so maybe I guess that's it. We got VDOT representative here today. It was about 2 or 3 months back, I think we had a VDOT representative here. And Jesse posted something on Facebook allowing us to make comments or suggestions where we needed some improvements on the road. And that seemed to go over pretty good. I mean, there was quite a bit of participation. A lot of folks posted things on there that, anyway, I was just curious to know why we didn't continue something like that. And Mr. Brown made a comment that not only for the VDOT comments, but any other suggestions that folks might want to put on there would be a good avenue. I think a lot of folks get involved in social media nowadays, particularly Facebook. The next comment again was to VDOT and Mr. Brown being here. There's a cautionary sign on 29 if you're traveling south, approaching the Mountain Cove. 718 is the number. And it tells you that the road's going to curve to the left and then straighten back up. But it doesn't make any note of the fact that there's a right turn at Mountain Cove Road that's 718. So you just kind of fly over that hill, which is halfway blind anyway, you can't see it. But folks that are slowing down to make that right turn, they more almost get run over before they get off the road. But that would be my suggestion, is to get that cautionary sign to show that there's also a turn there. The other point I can't have is back to the VDOT is that we request a fast track, maybe the next 13 to 30 years or so. Look at 29 at Cahill and 56 East. To have an overpass there instead of having that hard-cut idea since that got shot down. Still have all the traffic coming through there, but we just don't have a solution to what we can do with it. And I believe that the overpass would be the best idea, and unrestricted traffic flow across there would certainly be the ideal situation with maybe an underpass with, I got 30 seconds. I wanted to welcome Glenn. He's already gone, but wondered if his position in IT would also include this video of the meetings, maybe to improve the audio and the presentation board. But it's something that we talk about. Thank you again. Bye now.
Yes, thank you. All right, next we have Reverend Rhodes.
My name is Reverend James Rhodes. I reside at 2225 Union Hill Drive in Indiana. Good afternoon, members of the board, the commission, and Ms. McGarry. I come to you this afternoon on behalf of the Gladstone Senior Center. First, we want to thank the board for their support of our center. We want to thank the county for their support and contributed to our meals for our seniors. At this time, our senior receives $2,000 each quarter. Over the years, that amount was based on how many members that our center had. Over the years also, as you know, the economy have increased and the price of food items have also increased. At this time, our membership have increased from 8 members and we now have 40 members. And we continue to get members all the time. We are requesting for an increase for food from $2,000 a quarter to $5,000 a quarter. We had a cook, but she no longer cooked for the center. We are looking for a cook. As seniors,
many of us, some of the members are on fixed income. Any support that you can give our center will be greatly appreciated. Thank you, members of the Gladstone Senior Center. We invite you to come have a meal with us. We'd greatly love to see some of you up in that area. God bless you.
All right, Dr. Walker?
Good afternoon. I am Valerie Nunnery Walker. I stand today to address to the board about the Property Park project, which is located on Finley Gap Road in Norwood. On August 17, 2023, residents of South District met with Nelson County Director of Parks and Recreation, Jerry West, to hear and learn about the Strutt Park project. And we sincerely thank Mr. West for his time, his input, and the enlightening information he freely provided on August 17th. Prior to the August 17th and continuing even now, efforts initiated by an independent and a private natural environmental group has worked for several years to study and establish a nature reserve on the Strutt property. We sincerely thank this group for its diligent efforts cataloging and documenting natural aspects of the Strutt property. Mr. Strutt's property of approximately 344 acres was deeded to Nelson County in 2013. The Nelson County Board of Supervisors are overseers of the deeded property, responsible for the property's use as dictated in the deed, which stipulates 4 goals for the property. And the goals are very succinct: to recognize the natural environment, protect the county's scenic resources, promote a diversity of recreational opportunities, and maintain the rural character of Nelson County. With current planning and adoption of the Nelson County 2042 Comprehensive Plan, which is a guideline for the next 20 years, residents of the South District, significantly residents of Norwood Road and Finley Gap Road, therefore ask that the Board of Supervisors create a Board of Supervisors appointed committee to oversee and work along with Parks and Recreation Director Jerry West on the Strutt Park project as it evolves over the coming 20 years. There is no real oversight over this project, although decisions are being made from meeting to meeting, and I come to these meetings every month, and I was shocked to even hear about this project in August, where there have been decisions made and funds allocated or not allocated. We ask, therefore, that this committee's work be relatable to the comprehensive plan of 2042. Therefore, the one that's being planned, laid out now. Therefore, a part of Nelson's future growth as stipulated and big idea or planning principles number 4, I'm quoting from the comprehensive plan in draft. Those things that Nelson County as a community cares the most about, protect and connect to our rural environment. And that is section 4 of a part of the 4 big plans for the next 20 years. The committee that we are proposing should be composed of 2 residents of the South District, a Board of Supervisor member appointed, and that person doesn't have to be of the South District, and 2 members of the Nature Reserve Committee. That would be 2, 2, 1 equals 5 members of a committee manageable to handle, and that it will represent the community of not just Norwood, but of Nelson County. A parent in South District, a transparent connection that strengthens county relationships and builds trust between and within the county. And you can hear that 2 gentlemen spoke ahead of me, the Stevens. We don't agree on this, but we are neighbors, we are friends. We stand shoulder to shoulder in this project. We are an example of what people can do when they agree to disagree, be respectful, and still make things happen.
You could finish up your thoughts, please.
Okay, Mr. Barton, we thank you for your work that you've done so far, and we ask that you continue to work with this, and that when we get the newly elected person, and we're going to be electing someone in 77 days, that no decisions be made anything more be made with this committee or this non-committee
Thank
until
you.
committee is made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have David McGann.
My name is Dave McGann. I live on 1032 Crawford View Road. I just want to bring attention to the Rockfish Elementary School, a new dump, one that was put down there. They put impact of 600 and some more people coming a day on that road. And then since they went ahead and replaced the bridge down at the entranceway of the road to the dump site, and going away to my residence, the speed bump down there don't work no more because they never fixed the road after they put the bridge in. The traffic's still speeding, and the road is terrible down there. Every time they don't even fix it, the VDOT ain't never even fixed the potholes down there that they already tore up. My concern of it is, since the speed bump ain't working, how about let's go ahead and fix the road down there? Because every time I go in, they run you in the ditch down there, and then when you run you in your ditch, you run into potholes. And it ain't no sense in the county, that little stretch of road down there can't be improved since they put the dumpster down there, and 600 to 700 people a day coming down and using that road. That's my concern. And the other concern is, just bring it to the board again, and if somebody should bring it up. I think we go to Augusta County over there, they got a law when you haul trash down the road. It's always, if you got a pickup truck, you gotta put a net on top of it. It ought to be a law that Nelson County Board of Supervisors or somebody ought to, fishing in the county, that if you're hauling trash down the road, you ought to be a net on it, not to be fined, because there's too much trash on the side of the road. They know when they get down there, the trash is on the side of the road. And they don't even come back and pick it up. It's everywhere. Nelson County, I've been from here to Alaska and come back, and every fine on the road up there is $2,000 per litter. Automatic $2,000. You don't see trash in other states. It is what you see in Virginia and Kentucky and coming back, because we ain't got separate laws. And I think in Nelson County, at least would it help if we amend a debt going back in these trucks or trailers. If you haul them in cars, it's no problem. But we need to pass a law. Augusta County's got a law. We can pass a law. And another thing is it ain't happened yet, but the other day I come through Rockfish School, Ray John. It's good for the deputy sheriff to sit down there while they're flashing the lights. I love it. Tractor trailers coming through there flying like a better than crap. I just want to say, every VDOT worker I've seen out there has got a yellow and a blue blinking light. And if that blue light don't get your attention, nothing will. And I said, on 151, at the blinking light stand there, it's already, we should take the little bulb that's blinking in and put a blue light on it. I like to see somebody amend that before something happens. And on the new school up here, and also the high school, needs to be another light, because they ain't got none. But I like to see somebody put a light there and put blue light on it just to get people's attention. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, we have Willard McGann.
Thank y'all for having me. So I went to the meeting at the school last night, and a few things were told, said among y'all, Mr. Barr. I kind of just sat back and listened, and I disagree with most of it. You know, my whole thing is my life. I try to live within my means, and if taxpayers' money isn't enough to support y'all's projects, we shouldn't be going into debt. This is a county. For a county to go into debt, it blows my mind. I don't understand. You know, $80 million for this, and this. The school was just built. Why didn't they do the renovations then when they had the budget then? And the courthouse needs more money. The roads are falling to pieces. People don't have money for food, you know, and y'all are gonna raise taxes because y'all need repairs done and this done, and a new school's being talked about, and this little trail y'all want to build. I don't know. I don't really understand. You know, why y'all want to go into debt. That's just blows my mind. I think that y'all should be more transparent about what y'all trying to do. And, you know, if you want money, there's money to be made with drunk drivers. I mean, we got every other turn and 151 is a brewery, you know, and that needs to stop too. How many more breweries you want to pack in there? Or vineyards and this and that. Everything was alcohol last night. I mean, come on. That's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Edith Napier? Okay, thank you. All right, is there anybody else who wants to speak in public comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw you guys there.
All right, then we will close the public comment section and we will move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items in the consent agenda that any board member needs to pull out separately? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We'll have a vote by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have presentations. Is David here? Yes. Oh, there he is. Sorry, didn't see you. First up, we have TJPDC 2024 draft legislative agenda. David Blunt. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thanks so much for your time on your agenda this afternoon and this day. Just wanted to briefly talk about three things with you. I just want to give you a little update on state budget now that it appears we're going to have one. And then also talk a little bit about the landscape that we're going to be looking at heading into the 2024 General Assembly session, and then address what's on your screen with regards to the legislative priorities. So yeah, it does look like the General Assembly's action last week to adopt amendments to the fiscal year 24 current fiscal year budget, 6 months late, better late than never, I guess. There will be a new budget for 2024. It's on the governor's desk. He has until Friday in order to take action on it. Two themes, I guess, coming out of those amendments as they were adopted. One is tax relief. The other is some investment in a few high priority programs. Tax relief, you probably heard about. There's going to be some one-time rebates going back to single and joint filers probably sometime this fall. There's going to be a slight bump up in the standard deduction for filing for 2023, and then a couple of other smaller adjustments as well for tax relief. Public education, one of the big winners in terms of the investments, with some flexible money coming back for to localities and school divisions for addressing learning loss, literacy, some infrastructure needs. There's also some investments in water quality, some investments in mental health, as well as some additional investments in site acquisition, both at the state and some grants to localities. The revenues I wanted to talk about just for a minute as we are moving forward with the remainder of the fiscal year. Probably going to continue to increase at the state level, though not as much as we've seen the past several months. There will be a lot of resources, I think, available for Governor Youngkin to work with as he's preparing his budget for the following 2 fiscal years, 25 and 26. In fact, his Secretary of Finance told the General Assembly's Money Committees last month that he's going to set aside about $2 billion in preparation for his budget, looking for some additional tax relief and some additional investment in some high priority programs. So that process is underway, just as you all start your budgeting process for the next fiscal year. It seems like as you start one fiscal year, you're thinking about the next. But the governor will be introducing any changes to the current fiscal year budget, as well as his proposed budget for 25 and 26 by December. So a lot of work going on right now and in the coming weeks, the state agencies funneling up to the administration to get that budget ready for presentation. It's going to be a different General Assembly in 2024, primarily due to redistricting and then a host of retirements and legislators running for other office. Particularly, it's going to be a lot of impact in the Senate, where you're going to be seeing the loss of a lot of longtime legislators, and they're going to be taking hundreds and hundreds of years of institutional knowledge with them when they retire. Senate Finance Committee, which is one of the key committees in the Senate, deals with both revenue and budget matters. 16-member committee, 10 of those folks are not going to be there next year. In the House, probably more of the rank and file members are the ones that are going to be leading. Leadership, at least current leadership, seems to be fairly intact. And the House Appropriations Committee is not seeing a lot of change. The two committees that deal with local government issues, Senate local government, House, county, cities, and towns, likewise, about a third of the members of each of those committees are going to not be there this coming session. About a third of the General Assembly overall is going to see a change. So, likewise in Nelson County, you all will have two new legislators that will be representing you, one new House member. Actually, I take that back. You may have one current member. Senator Deans is running to represent Nelson County and representing us in the past. But a lot of new faces, not really sure what to expect from these new legislators. I think just as usual, it seems like local governments end up having to play a lot of defense when it comes to bills that are introduced, and maybe that we're doing that again as well. Let me quickly just turn to legislative priorities for the coming session. What's on the screen that was in your packet are the three top priorities that were included in the regional legislative program for this past General Assembly session. Public education funding has been a longstanding position in the region, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. There may be some additional focus on public education funding at the state level, given the Daylark report that came out back in July that talked about different areas where the state has been underfunding K-12 education. The budgets and funding priority is kind of where we stick positions related to increased funding for localities that are implementing state programs at the local level, providing that local service delivery. We also stated opposition to unfunded mandates. And then broadband has certainly been a priority, not only in Nelson County, but across the region and beyond, really the entire state in recent years. And so we expect we would want to continue to advocate for state support, federal dollars for broadband. Have budgets and funding there on the page. One thing I wanted to mention that I didn't a few minutes ago. One of the other good things I think came out of the budget amendments that were adopted by the General Assembly last week, specific to Nelson counties. Something was a specific request of this board, but there was about $200,000 included for the Nelson Heritage Center, again, in the current fiscal year. So that's a good thing. Certainly, looking for any comments or suggestions you all may have, or reactions to the current priorities, as it relates to bringing forth a revised legislative program to you in November. Certainly the work that this board and your administration has already done with regard to the private police forces and eligibility for line of duty act benefits is something certainly that will be added to the program, expressing support for that change. But I just, any questions you all have, any suggestions you may have, glad to take them at this time.
Anybody have any questions, comments, Mr. Blunt?
I'd just like to thank David for the work that he does on behalf of TJPDC. TJPDC just completed its draft strategic plan, and of all the services that TJPDC provides, and they are many, legislative program was highestly rated, most rated. And so thank you for doing that, for keeping us in the loop on what's going on in Richmond.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Not? No, you need to head out. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Next up, we have VDOT report. Come on down.
Good afternoon, board.
Afternoon.
Yeah. Just have a few things to report. I don't know if any of you have been up on the northbound lane of, the southbound lane of 29, just north of Woodsville. We had a high crash rate area up there that we addressed a few years ago with some, high friction pavement. That's kind of temporary. If you've been up there lately, we put out some additional high friction pavement up there. That's gonna be very nice and reducing hydroplaning and skidding, when the road gets wet. So that's a good safety feature. I submitted 3 locations, as part of a district contract, and we got all 3 of them, in my area, which is Nelson and Amherst and Campbell County got some. So that was good. A concern from a previous concern, some shoulder repairs on 56, I think they have been made. There was some deep drop offs over there. I think that's been completed. We accomplished something we hadn't done in quite a while. We completely ditched and machined the shoulders on Route 6 going up the mountain. That has been something we've been wanting to do for quite some time, and we got that done. Our rural rustic program, we are back on Jack's Hill with our contractor, hoping to finish that up soon. We did have to pull our hard equipment contractors in Campbell County to do some flood work over there. I do see some mowing going on our 2-lane primary, so hopefully, I know we're mowing those now. And also the secondary mowing, we used this mowing on secondary system was a new contractor we had. We prioritized that, and it appears, I think he should be finished up in Nelson County, but if it's not, he's very close. It looks like that's working well. A few other things that's still outstanding. I know the board brought the concern at 29 in Sandridge, just 24 at the animal shelter, I guess is what you call it. We have not completed that, but we have not forgotten about it. That is in Dutch Creek. I think that came from the board, maybe. That really did great. I think the motor grader, I think we've been up there, but I'm not 100% sure, but we're gonna follow up on that. I know Mr. Cook, I don't see Mr. Cook yet, Chief Cook yet, the U-turn sign, south of Shady's. We are going to enlarge that U-turn sign, but I see it hasn't been done yet. That sign is most likely on order. So hopefully that'll come up that'll be put up as soon as possible, when we get that sign. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of other to report. I know we had some concerns about the sidewalks here in Livingston. And I think we've weeded those and done a pretty good job on that. As far as doing incidental concrete repairs, I am looking to get some additional funding to do some of the repairs on the sidewalks where there may be uneven surfaces. I don't think it's a lot up there because we've been improving on that for the last 10 years. So we're going to take a good inventory and and do some repairs up there. Hopefully we're going to get some earmark money for that type of work in addition to our normal allocations, maintenance allocations. Other than that, I heard the public comment about Finley Gap. Is my understanding, and I have not been through Finley Gap since Mr. Reed, you and I went up there, but I was told that our state forces have been working up there to make that more passable and get it in better shape. Not saying that it's complete or anything great. That road's gonna need a lot of work. It's gonna need a lot of work and a lot of improvement to stabilize the surface, improve the drainage. And, a lot of that we could do. But it's my understanding we've been up there quite a bit since Mr. Reed, you and I have been up there. Have not come up with a good fix for the string boards. Thought I was on to a couple things, but I haven't gotten those worked out. But at the least we can, our environmental people, they will let us put some natural rock and make those more passable. So that is, I don't know if that's happened or if it will happen, but it should happen. So with that said, that's kind of all I have, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anybody have any comments, questions?
I just have a question. You talked about the secondary roads are being mowed by private firm,
Yes,
all of them?
all of them, yes, were to be mowed by a private contractor.
So anything other than 29 is being done by private contractors?
Well, 29 and your 2-lane primaries.
Okay.
It was total secondary cut. That was not only in Nelson, but Amherst, Appomattox, and Kendall County.
Yeah, I've just noticed that some of it's been done, but it's not all of it's been done.
Well, I don't know if they finished yet. I assume they have finished, but they were supposed to cut them all. And if you find out, Mr. Barton, if they haven't been cut, or I would appreciate, I'll check into it.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I just happened to go up which is not my district, but I happened to go up Davis Creek. That was not cut.
No, they may not be finished yet, but I was thinking they were finished. But we'll check on it.
Does anybody live in Davis Creek?
You know, we see it often, we see it everywhere, trucks are only here on the road, you know, we got ditches that are full of grass, you don't know what's the shoulder of the road, and what's ditch, Take a ride.
How do you make, that these private firms are doing the job? You have oversight that?
I mean, we ride behind them to check behind them. We check behind them and they furnish us a map where they've checked off every road and we follow up on it.
Anything else? Harvey? Reed? Nothing. Do you know where VDOT's role and the Verizon wireless tower in Jonesboro come? Do you know if there's anything going on there? My understanding that part of the delay on that tower is a VDOT permit holding things up. Do you know anything about that, or is that just hearsay?
The Jonesboro.
The Verizon tower that's going in on 666 behind Jonesboro Church, there on the Brent property.
I don't know why we'd be holding up on it. All we would issue would be a permit for service interest or something. I'll ask, but I'm not aware of anything, Mr. Porter.
Okay.
I can't imagine. I mean, just an access road.
When I was told that, I thought the same thing. And I know there was a delay on the Piney River Tower, and that situation was part of that VDOT issue,
Yeah,
but that was different.
Yeah, that was.
And that's been done, and that, I just got a message from Verizon that has been, antenna's been installed, and they're just waiting on fiber, but I was just curious about.
I'll check into what my assistant Daniel.
Okay. And you did make some notes on the public comments that were made. I've got a few notes if you want to talk after.
I got the Finley Gap, the gentleman that spoke on the road going down to the dumpster. Which road was that?
635. Yep.
At Red Oak School or Greenfield?
That Rockfish Elementary School.
Rockfish Elementary School Lane.
Like taking notes there, the new pavement past the roundabout coming, so it'll be south on 151, coming to Big Woods Road, going up the mountain. Coming up through there with any kind of speed limit, with any kind of weight, it's gonna throw you into the the other lane. It's just a hump.
Hey, Willard, if you all have any other comments for VDOT, if you all could meet him out in the hall, we're going to move on with the next agenda item. Thank you for coming today. Anybody else have anything for VDOT? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to move on to new and unfinished business. Ms. McGarry, if you would come up, we're going to start out with the change in the November Board of Supervisors meeting date. R 2023-58.
As Mr. Parr noted, R 2023-58 is to propose a change of the regular meeting from November 14th to November 16th. This is due to the conflict with the board's attendance of the BACO conference, which runs through November 14th. The staff just recommends adoption of the proposed resolution if that change works for you all.
And that is 14th. Anybody have any conflicts with moving it from the 14th to the 16th? Is that all right? I'll entertain a motion that we adopt resolution R 2023-58 as presented.
So move.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a vote by acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Resolution passes. Thank you. Next, we have the Gladstone Depot TAP resolution of support.
Okay. This resolution is required, it's a governing body letter of support, basically, for a final submission of a transportation alternatives program grant funding through the Virginia Department of Transportation. The board had previously authorized the submittal of an FY 25-26 transportation alternative program grant funding pre-application for further funding of the Gladstone Depot relocation and restoration project. This received an initial funding award in September of 2022. The pre-application was screened in for submittal of a final application due October 2nd. And as I noted, requires a governing body letter of support. Just some background, as a reminder, the initial funding award occurred in September of 2022. The county signed off on the grant agreement in May of 23 and returned it to VDOT for its execution. Between May of 23 and August of 23, VDOT and the Federal Highway Administration performed further review of the grant and determined that there were multiple elements of the project and budget estimate that were not eligible expenditures within the grant parameters. The primary one of these ineligible expenditures being the relocation of the depot building. They have related to county staff and Friends of Gladstone Depot representatives that because this is funded in the category of historic preservation and rehabilitation of a historic transportation facility, that transportation alternative funds cannot be used to relocate the historic transportation building to either another alignment on or near the current property, or to another property because the historic property is directly tied to the land where it was originally built. They also advise that in the event that TA funds could not be used for relocation of the depot, relocating the historic transportation structure would potentially make the building not historic anymore if moved from its original location and would jeopardize its eligibility for TA funds to support otherwise eligible historic preservation activities. Those were direct quotes from VDOT and FHWA. They did indicate there could be some caveats to the second issue depending on circumstances that would have to be worked through. They also advised that they did not believe the project could be completed within the 4-year window allowed in the initial grant, and they recommended the initial grant award be canceled and the county proceed with a total project application in this round for FY 25-26. Submitting for up to the maximum project cap for federal funding of $2.5 million, or we could consider applying for the total project in the next cycle in 27-28. VDOT indicated they would like to review the full budget for the project in order to provide guidance about which expenditures would not be eligible for TA grant fund reimbursement. And these are, like I said, generally related to the relocation and anything that falls outside of the historic preservation rehabilitation activities. Friends of Gladstone and their consultant Coleman Adams are evaluating these expenditures for provision to VDOT for this review. County staff also met with Ms. Joanne Asher, who is here today, from the Friends of Gladstone and Ms. Sanchez to discuss the feasibility of the project moving forward, given that the relocation of the depot would have to be paid for with a different funding source, and that moving it may render it ineligible for future TA grant funding.
Staff has followed up with VDOT to get clarification on several questions that are aimed to help Friends of Gladstone make a decision as to whether or not they would like to proceed with the grant. Should the group decide to proceed, staff will work with VDOT and FHWA, Friends of Gladstone Depot, and the TJPDC between now and the grant submission deadline to rework the grant application for eligible project expenditures. We were recommending adoption of the proposed resolution 2023-59, just so that it's available for final grant submittal by the October 2nd deadline. The board could consider deferring consideration of this resolution until the continued meeting on September 28th, if you prefer to wait until we get some further follow-up from VDOT and FHWA. But right now, the proposed resolution provides endorsement of the Gladstone Depot project up to a maximum of $2.5 million in federal transportation alternative grant funds, for which the maximum local share would be $625,000. Ms. Asher's here if you have any questions for Friends of Gladstone in terms of what they're thinking and in terms of the FHWA and VDOT new parameters regarding the grant.
Okay. Would you like to make any comments, or you come on up if you do? You don't have to.
Well, we have been waiting for clarification from VDOT, and we've been waiting for that. I've sent several emails since August 18th, and we've gotten no response. When we started this project in 2017, we had a mission, and we had two things in that mission. It was to save the building because it is a historic building, and also to use it as a community center for our senior citizens and youth. And now it looks like, due to the changes, that's not going to happen. And so we're just in limbo until we get a little bit more clarification. I would suggest waiting until the September 28th meeting. We can talk a little bit further, and I need to go before our board and decide whether we're going to move forward with this grant, or we do have a plan B. I don't know that how it'll work, but we have a plan B. So it's not what we would hope for. And I hate to see that building go down, because it is it's a building that's in good shape. But yeah, it's just not going to happen. The federal funds were cut and regulations were changed. So we got to the finish line and they changed the rules. So we're kind of sorry about that. So if I'm going to be talking to my board this weekend, and then we'll come to that September 28th meeting, and maybe we'll know a little bit more.
Okay.
All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Barton, you have a comment?
Well, the decision was based on moving the building 200 feet, which is hard to accept. It's basically in the same place, but I mean, people have done so much work that
the location that we're going to move it to is part of the Gladstone rail yard. And so I have given that information to VDOT. But like I said, we have not heard anything.
But the idea that moving the building and no longer becomes just historical, really difficult
Moving it
to
is preserved.
accept. But it's not like she said. Not time to give up yet.
No,
and so anything we can do to support the effort of people, the efforts of the people from Gladstone, we need to do, but it's very disappointing.
Sounds like you need to get really involved.
What?
You need to get really involved and help them.
Yeah, and I definitely think we should delay any decision on this until the next meeting, September 28th.
I did reach out to Senator Deeds, because Senator Deeds has been very helpful in this project from the beginning, and I sent him an email on Monday. So, he reached back, usually good help. He usually gets back.
All right, well, I say we postpone action on this until the next meeting, unless there's any opposition from the rest of the board. Okay. Let's move on to the next item. Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Keep us updated.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk to you soon. Good luck. All right, next we have item C, Livingston TAP resolution of support.
Okay, this is a second TAP grant application that was screened in by VDOT to go to the final submission process. This is for the Livingston Front Street Sidewalk Improvement Project, and this also requires a governing body letter of support. The final application is also, like the other one, due October 2nd, 2023. As a reminder, this application is for widening of sidewalks on the west side of the Front Street between Main Street and Theater Drive in order to better meet accessibility standards. Curb ramps with detectable warning surfaces would be installed, and curb extensions and bump outs would be constructed at future crosswalk locations. Additional work includes replacing driveway ramps that don't meet ADA standards and removal of utility poles from the sidewalk area so they are unobstructed. PJPDC is currently working with VDOT staff to update the budget estimate numbers for the final application submittal. This one could be deferred as well until September 28th if you so preferred, or you could take action today.
Is there any disadvantage to putting it off until the 28th?
No, there's no disadvantage. As long as they have the letters by the October 2nd submittal deadline, that's all they need.
I just know that this one is very close to Chairman Rutherford's heart.
Right.
And I think it'd be nice just to hold off on this one until he's here to vote on it. It's not gonna hurt anything to not act today. Anybody opposed to that? Oh, okay.
I'll note this one as well has a project maximum of $2.5 million in federal transportation alternative grant funds with the maximum local share of $625,000.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, next up is Nelson County Drug Court funding request.
Okay, I believe Ms. Bryant is here. She's our circuit court clerk and is working with the Nelson County Drug Court. She's requesting that the board provide either monetary funding in the drug court budget or for gift cards or for purchase of gift cards as incentives to participants in the county's drug court program. There are currently 2 participants enrolled. The recommended action by staff would be to authorize a nominal budgetary contribution to the drug court budget for this purpose. You could either use non-recurring contingency or our direct opioid abatement funds, which this would be an eligible use of. So I'll ask Ms. Bryant to come up and see if she has anything to add.
I think you've done a very good job. Thank you all for having us today. I know you all are well aware, Mr. Reed has attended several of our meetings, as has Ms. Bobby, that this is something new here, something new for the court, new for the Commonwealth's office, and several other entities. And we are just asking if you would share in rewarding these folks for their wishing to make changes in their lives that will probably impact them forever. And that's what we hope. So we appreciate anything you can do to assist.
Do you have an amount in mind at all?
I was thinking maybe $1,000. So they are used to purchase gift cards in $10 and $15 increments. They could be to Subway, they could be gas cards. Just to reward them if they meet all the criteria when they show up, they're negative drug screened, they do all the necessary items that they need to do. It's sort of a reward program that they're able to choose a little token of appreciation for them doing what they need to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
what, you're asking for $1,000?
Yes, sir.
That's like a couple days in jail, right? I think it makes sense, a lot of sense.
Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, I think having some positive reinforcement on behalf of the county helps reinforce our commitment to the program and could really facilitate things for it. I'd be in favor of it, for sure.
And you say we have earmarked opioid money, there's a fund.
Right, we currently have about $48,000 that we've received directly through opioid abatement settlement funds from the national level. We're using some of those funds to pay some local expenses related to the drug court grant. However, there is, enough available to provide the funding for the gift cards in that pot of money. And it would be an eligible expense.
All right, so what would the board like to do? I will entertain a motion from the board on this, how much and where the funds should come from.
Well, I move that that the board commit $1,000 from the opioid abatement fund to go towards gift cards to the participants of those folks in the county going through drug court.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Martin? Yes. Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes. All right, thank you all very much. Thank you. Good luck with that. All right. Next, we have Nelson FFA Alumni Chapter Funding Request.
We do have Ms. Dana Campbell here from the Alumni Chapter to also present and answer any questions you may have. But just to summarize, the Nelson FFA Alumni Chapter is requesting funding for high school FFA teams to travel to 2 national FFA competitions involving 4 students at each competition, one in September and one in November. The cost per student is $1,000. Full funding for both of these competitions and all the students would be $8,000. However, the chapter is requesting any support the board is willing to give. The alumni chapter advised us that the FFA chapter has requested school board funding with the outcome pending, and the annual Bluegrass Music Fundraiser will be held on October 14th. Now, I'd say if she has anything to add there.
Thank you for your consideration of our request this afternoon. We have, I believe, 14 current students going to national convention in November, plus 2 alumni who are receiving the highest award the FFA gives, that's the American degree. And then we have 4 students traveling to Massachusetts this coming weekend to compete in a contest there. So these students are representing Nelson County and the Commonwealth of Virginia at the national contest.
Awesome. I know they will, as always, represent us well. So, yeah. What is the pleasure of the board? I was looking at it. I know we've got a total request or a total expense coming up of $8,000. I know there's several funding sources.
We are not requesting full funding.
Right. Yeah, several funding sources for that. I mean, I don't know. What do y'all think? $2,000?
She had mentioned 4.
She mentioned $1,000 per student is the cost, and it's a total of $8,000.
It's 4 students going to 2 national competitions at a cost of $1,000 each.
Yeah. So it's a total of $8,000 is the total request, but they're also hoping to get funds from the school board, which usually participates, and then they also have the Bluegrass fundraiser coming up.
I believe we do the 4. I mean, you don't even make them squirm for every little penny.
Any other comments from the board?
I'm willing to go along with Mr. Harvey.
Reed?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Mr. Harvey, for making the motion. That is in fact a
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
And I would second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second that we fund $4,000 for the FFA alumni chapter funding request to send students to compete in national competitions. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes? Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes. Congratulations. Thank you so much. And I will say, we certainly enjoy when, I know this is the alumni chapter requesting the funds, but we certainly enjoy when those competitors show up and they're blue corduroy, and we wish they could have been here today. It would have been nice to see some of them.
I understand. We'll see if we can get some results from November after we finish.
Come back and brag.
Yeah.
Thank
For
you.
your support, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Best of luck to all of them.
Just to note, those funds would be coming from
Non-recurring contingency. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, next we have authorization for public hearing to correct the FY24 budget adoption and appropriation resolutions, R 2023-61.
I'm going to bring up the original resolutions here that were adopted on June 13, 2023. We had R 2023-40 was the budget adoption resolution, and the R 2023-41 was the appropriation of funds. In these resolutions, the total FY24 budgeted amount was $93,052,046. However, during our annual FY23 year end and subsequent FY24 beginning year financial process in August, our staff discovered a clerical error in the general fund total as presented in those resolutions that affected the overall adopted and appropriated budget for FY24. The correct FY24 budget adoption and appropriation total should be $95,163,565. Don't know if you can see here. This general fund number here of about 48 million should have also contained this 2.1 million for the Department of Social Services or BPA fund. So staff consulted with the county attorney and our auditors on how to effect this correction. They recommended that staff follow the initial budget adoption and appropriation procedures in accordance with 15.2-2506 of the Code of Virginia, requiring a public hearing. So therefore, our resolution 2023-61 would be an authorization for public hearing on the correction of the FY24 budget adoption and appropriation resolutions.
All right, any questions or comments from the board?
What was the error?
So the error was, we needed to include the 2.1 million that was budgeted within the general fund to be transferred to the BPA fund, and that amount was not included in the general fund total. So there's no new money being budgeted or appropriated. It's just a clerical error in that 2.1 million was not included in the general fund total, which should be $50,222,334.
Why is there no need to, that money was already there? Or?
The money was already there. What you have to do in these resolutions is include all of your funds that you're transferring to in the main general fund budget number, plus list them individually. So what happened was the BPA fund was listed individually, but it was not included in the total general fund amount as it should have been. Help. Linda's also here. She might have a better explanation than me, but
You're doing a great job.
Which is to say the money has already been allocated.
The money has already been
So
allocated.
we're not allocating an additional amount of funds.
That's correct. We're just making a clerical correction to the budget adoption and appropriation resolution. Yes, please.
the board, when we went through all of the budgeting processes leading up to the board approving the budget, that $50,222,434 was already established, and it did include the 2.1 million for the BPA fund. In transferring that total over to the resolution, I omitted including the 2.1 million in the general fund budget as a transfer item. And that's why it does not increase the bottom line of what we're actually going to expend. It simply left that amount out of the general fund so that it could be transferred over, if that makes sense.
Enough sense.
Enough sense, okay, thank you.
So right now, this is just an authorization for the public hearing on this matter so that we can make these corrections. So our auditors and county attorney are satisfied with the actions taken.
I'd like to move that we adopt resolution R 2023-61, Nelson County Board of Supervisors authorization for a public hearing to correct fiscal year 24 budget adoption and appropriation resolutions.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes. Very good.
Thank you very much.
So we'll have a public hearing on that on October 10th. All right, next, another public hearing. Let's see. Yes, for FY24 budget amendment for school construction funds, R 2023-62. Ms. McGarry?
I'll give a little background on this if you don't mind. On March 28th of 23, the Board of Supervisors voted to provide a letter of financial commitment for the school division school construction assistance program grant application. That letter pledged the board's financial support in the form of payment of debt service related financing to fund the proposed Nelson County High School renovation. The school division was awarded the 10% grant at a special meeting of the Department of Education Board on May 11th in the amount of $2,451,703. This was communicated to supervisors via email the same day, and the initial notification from the State Department of Education was dated June 21st, 23. County and school division staff met and discussed the project status, and they are currently in negotiations with an architectural firm for AE services related to the renovation. The grant funds must be contractually obligated by November 2023, and they are working towards meeting this deadline. They anticipate using only these grant funds in FY24, with the project financing and majority of expenditures expected to occur in FY25. Staff will be in consultation with the schools and Davenport, our financial advisors, on our project financing options and timeline in the near future. The proposed FY23-24 budget amendment related to this provides for a supplemental appropriation of school construction assistance program grant funds as requested by the school division. This request is in the amount, again, of $2,451,703, which pursuant to the Code of Virginia, Section 15.2-2507, this amount exceeds the statutory limit in that code section of 1% of the total expenditure shown in our currently adopted budget that can be approved without first holding a public hearing. Hence the need for a public hearing on this amount of supplemental appropriation for the schools.
All right. So any questions for Ms. McGarry on resolution R 2023-62 for public hearing?
Does that mean that we have to spend this much money? We are committed to spending 24 million?
I mean, that was the commitment the board made in the letter provided to the school division for the grant application. And that was based on the estimate that the school division had at the time of the grant application, was approximately 24 million.
But what I'm asking is like, when does this $24 million have to be committed?
24 million, that doesn't have any time frame for commitment. It's just the 2.4 million in grant funds that they're receiving. They have to have those obligated by November of this year. And they're gonna get those monies up front, is my understanding from the Department of Education. And so therefore they'll get them in FY24, and we need to amend our FY24 budget to accommodate receipt and expenditure of those funds. And that amount, the 2.4 million, exceeds our 1% threshold of our expenditure budget that we can appropriate without a public hearing. So the state code requires us to have a public hearing due to the amount of the funds that we're going to be amending their budget by.
Are we committed to $24 million? Is really my question.
We've voted as a board to support the renovation, and the estimate at the time was $24 million, yes.
Right, you're
We-
committed to
we
whatever
committed to
the
that.
debt ends up being.
Yeah. We've committed to the project, yes.
Right.
Committed to the, but we don't know what the price.
Right now, it's 24 million
If
and change.
If it becomes 30 million, then
If it becomes 30
it,
million,
it can become more, or can it become less, is what I'm asking.
it could go either way. It could go either way, but right now we have to deal with the 2.4 million in state funds for the grant. And that's a known number, but the actual total number of debt for the total project is currently unknown. That will be determined once the architect gets on board and starts looking at the project and revises the estimate.
Will there be any, if the estimate increases, is there an opportunity for us to resubmit for 10%, which would be an incremental increase perhaps?
I don't know the answer to that question right now. I can find out.
On the same way, is there an opportunity we decide to spend less money, reduce the grant? Both, same question.
Mhm. Right, just in the opposite direction.
Right.
I'd have to find out the answers to this. I don't know that standing here before you right now.
But for today, we're basically reaffirming our commitment to the number we previously committed
Correct.
in order to get this. I'm just wondering that if there is a change in the positive, which is certainly likely to happen, if it would be possible or is it necessary for us to do this today, or would it be to our benefit to submit it later and maybe get a larger amount, or to try to get, if there's an increase in the estimated cost, if we can come back and ask for.
I see what you're saying, but I also understand from the school division that, they're under a time crunch to get these funds obligated, and I think it would help them to have the funds appropriated, to attain that goal.
I certainly agree. I agree with you. Yeah. But if there is a future opportunity, it would be, we don't need to know today in order to authorize this, but it would be good to know going forward.
Sure. Yes, it would. I agree.
Any other comments from the board?
This is just an authorization for
For
a
a
public
public hearing.
hearing. It's not the
Yes.
decision side of
Right.
making the budget amendment. We can try to have those answers for you before the public hearing.
Yeah.
Or at the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to adopt resolution R 2023-62 as presented?
That's the one.
Yes, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second authorizing the Pollard High School renovation, and the high school was not renovated. It kind of got lipstick on a pig when the middle school construction was done and all that. But back then, the high school basically just got some windows and a few minor things here and there, not, the flooring and the wall tiles and all of that is still the same stuff that you went to high school with, when you were in high school. So this is a renovation project that's long overdue. And but anyway, not on that. All right, next we have special use permit number 986, outdoor entertainment venue, deferred from the August meeting.
All right, good afternoon. As you said, we had a public hearing for this back in August 8th, 2023. I'm not sure if that will pull the packet. So at that meeting, the board requested that we come up with an alternative suggestion for the condition that limited the number of events. Here's some more clarification on events that was asked for. Exempt events include agritourism activities that, by virtue of the number of attendees, size and location of property, or hours of conduct, do not cause any substantial impact on the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. So many of the events that the applicants have described would already fall under exempt events, the smaller events that they were talking about, like the lavender associated events. Category 1 and Category 2 temporary events, which those are events that are open to the public. Those are currently not limited in number, but are required to be applied for individually, and they would still need to be applied for individually if the special use permit is approved. But from what the applicants state, they do not really intend to have many Category 1, Category 2 temporary event permits. Temporary social events do not require a permit, but they do need to have a special use permit if they wish to have more than 12 social temporary events, or if they wish to hold the social temporary events in the structure. While the recommendation that I have is not the only option, it does aim to support you in making your recommendation or decision. The board has emphasized the importance of avoiding ambiguity in the condition and has requested a comprehensive approach that clearly addresses the various types of events. So the condition that we had from the planning commission was that the number of events shall be limited to 150 per year. What I am proposing is that events with fewer than 75 attendees shall not be limited. Again, this is mostly events that are going to be exempt anyway. Events with between 76 and 125 attendees will be limited to 75 events per year. And then events between 126 and 150 attendees will be limited to 25 events per year. This would apply to the social temporary events and the category 1 and category 2 events. Category 1 and 2 events shall receive individual temporary event permits, and exempt events will be unaffected by this condition.
Just for our behalf, can you redefine Category 1 and Category 2 so that we know exactly what they are?
So Category 1 and Category 2 events, again, the applicants here do not really intend on having many of those events, but those are events that are open to the public, not a wedding or a reunion or something private. It's something where tickets are sold, similar to a concert, something like that. Category 1 events are under 500 attendees, and then Category 2 events are anywhere between 500 and 10,000 attendees. These events they're currently able to do these events on this property, just not in the structure. And they are required to be applied for individually. They're reviewed by VDOT, Health Department, the Sheriff's Department, State Police, and EMS. This would limit the amount that they can apply for based on the number of attendees, but they would still need to apply for each of these individually, and they would individually get reviews from all of those agencies. Social temporary events like weddings and such do not need to receive those individual permits.
So the difference between Category 1 and Category 2 is?
The size. Category 1 is anywhere up to 500 attendees. Category 2 is anywhere between 500 and 10,000 attendees.
So the limits that you're recommending are only for those that don't reach the threshold of either Category 1 or Category 2?
Well, yeah, so Category 2 events of over 500 people, that's self-limiting because, as they've stated, they don't have the capacity to support more than 150 attendees, and that's going to be one of the conditions. The other two conditions that we had were that the maximum number of attendees at any event shall not exceed 150, and that amplified music and sound shall end at 10:30 p.m. So really, you could omit category 2 from that condition.
But we would need to include those conditions by your recommendation in this.
Yes, this is just to replace that one condition. The other 2 conditions are still recommended. The limiting to 150 and that amplified music and sound shall end at 10:30.
So keeping numbers 2 and 1 or 2
Yeah,
and
keeping numbers 1 and 2
and
then
replacing
number
3.
3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And the applicants are here today if you have any questions for them.
And this was direct result of comments that were made at the last meeting and suggestions on some sort of compromise. And in review, I agree, this seems to be a good compromise from what was proposed originally. Yeah. Anybody else have comments or questions for anybody?
I just think that you've done a really good job at some clear limits on things that I think are necessary in this case. The numbers involved are a little subjective, certainly, and there's nothing we can look at that really says what those numbers should actually be, except that given other situations, they would be right.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, on the property now, as an A1 property, they are allowed to apply for as many category 1 and category 2 temporary events that they want. They just can't happen in the structure. Social temporary events, they're currently limited to 12 per year and can't happen in the structure. The special use permit would allow them to have events in the structure, as well as more than 12 social temporary events per year. They would be allowed to have up to 25 that are between 126 and 150, and up to 75 that are between 76 and 125. But this would not allow them to do any more category 1 and category 2 events than they would already be allowed to do. This would actually be limiting the number of category 1 and category 2 events that they could do just on the property now.
And do these restrictions convey if there's a change in ownership?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they would stay with the special use permit. The special use permit would stay with the land. The only reason the special use permit would expire is if it ceased being utilized as such for a period of 2 years or more.
Any other questions, comments? I do have one quick question. How is traffic directed coming off of 151 if you're coming? Does GPS send people through across from Spruce Creek, or do they come that way? And I'm just curious.
I would think whichever way they're coming from, would.
Yeah. I didn't know if you were further on. It just would be nice if in your literature, if you could try to direct people to turn at Ski Barn rather than turning at Spruce Creek end of the loop. It's just a safer turn. So I don't know if you ever give directions, but that would be nice. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendations, number 1, number 2, as stipulated by the Planning Commission, and substituting the recommended alternative for number 3 for special use permit 986.
And I'll just note that the language in my memo, I sent it out before cleaning it up, that those wills in that statement should be shalls. So, minor correction.
Gotcha. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton? Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we are at a point of going into reports, appointments, directives, and correspondence. Do we want to take a break? Yes. We're going to take a short break and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes.